Hi, welcome back to Movie Digest. In this video I'm going to explain the 2017 crime thriller movie, titled, All the Money in the World. Spoilers ahead. As the movie begins, we see John Paul Getty III strolling the streets of Rome at night. He encounters some hookers who make fun of him that he's young, while another tells him not to make his family worried and warns him to leave. As he walks away, a van pulls up by his side, and they quickly open the door and pull him in. It took a moment for Paul to realize he had been kidnapped. Paul then narrates he was kidnapped for being the grandson of John Paul Getty. His grandpa, John Paul Getty Sr., is not just the wealthiest man in the world, he was the richest man in the history of the world. He amassed his fortune by buying oil from Saudi Arabia. While everyone thought it was hard to extract, he found a way and made a deal with the local tribes. There was no big enough ship to carry that much oil, so he invented one and called it a supertanker. Meanwhile, the abductor brought Paul to the far countryside and locked him in a cell. The movie flashes back a few years to Paul as a child. He has 3 siblings. His mother Gail, and his father John Paul Getty Jr. struggle to raise them since they are broke. John Jr. is estranged from his father, as he hardly spent time with him in his childhood and never talked to him in years. Gail pushes him to write a letter to his father and tells him to mention that he is looking for a job. He initially refuses but eventually writes the letter because of their circumstances. A few days later, he gets a telegram from Paul Getty Sr., telling he got a job for him in Rome. Gail gets excited as it would change their lives. The family arrives in Rome and is taken to the hotel to meet Getty Sr., who is happy to see them. They find his clothes hanging in the bathroom. Getty Sr. tells them he likes to dry his clothes by himself, as he thinks there is no point in spending money on the room service. Getty Sr. seems to like Paul, and gifts him an antique worth $1 million, which he bought only for $11. Getty Sr. makes Paul read his letters while having breakfast, where one woman asks him for money for her husband's treatment, but he responds by saying that if he keeps responding to every request for money, he will end up being destitute like herself. Getty Sr. informs Paul Jr. that he is making him the executive vice president of Getty Oil to look over European operations, and Paul gets to spend more time with his grandfather. A few years later, John Jr. became addicted to drugs and sleeping with other women. Gail has no choice and asks for a divorce from John Jr. Gail deals with Getty Sr. over the divorce. When Gail asks for child support, Getty Sr. blatantly refuses since everything comes from his money. Gail tries to negotiate but eventually decides to give up the child support so that she can have the divorce. Coming to the present time, the kidnappers call Gail to inform they got her son and demand $17 million for Paul's freedom. Gail tells them she has no money. They don't believe her since she is a Getty, and they think she is rich. The main kidnapper Cinquanta convinces Gail to ask Getty Sr. for the money. Gail tries to reach Getty Sr., but he keeps avoiding her. After news of the kidnapping reaches Getty Sr., he gives a live TV interview in which he publicly declares that he won't pay anything to Paul's kidnappers, justifying that if he were to do so, he would have 14 kidnapped grandchildren instead of just 1. Gail leaves a message with Getty Sr.'s assistant, telling her she's coming to see him, and the assistant hands Gail's message to Getty Sr. After reading the letter, Getty Sr. tells his assistant to call Fletcher Chase. Chase is Getty Sr.'s best advisor and a former CIA agent. Gail arrives at Getty's mansion, and while waiting she meets Chase. Chase then meets Getty Sr., who orders him to go to Rome and bring back Paul quickly and inexpensively. Chase then returns to Gail and informs her that he will deal with her son's kidnap. While Gail only wants $17 million, Chase tells her it won't guarantee she gets her son back. They arrived in Rome and were surrounded by the press reporters until the lead investigator Carvo showed up and took them away. Carvo shows her all the mails that were addressed to her, as many people worldwide claim to be her son's kidnappers. A man pulls up to Chase the following day and tells him to follow. They turn out to be the Brigate Rossa communist group. They claim that they had Paul and demanded $17 million. But Chase soon realizes they don't have Paul. So they come clean and say they had an agreement with Paul, who planned with them to get himself kidnapped to extract money from his grandfather. The group believes that Paul found someone else. Chase informs this to Getty Sr., and he is disappointed in Paul. Chase thinks Paul must be chilling at some beach and will return once the money runs out. However, Getty Sr. tells him to stay in Rome and wait for Paul's return. A few weeks go by, and the kidnappers get frustrated as things take much longer than expected, and they can't keep him there since the winter is coming. When Paul asks to go to the toilet, one of them takes him out to a grassy area outside. He covered his face with a mask the entire time. However, he turns around and lifts his mask to have a smoke. When Paul is done, that man forgets to pull the mask down and turns around, so Paul sees his face. The kidnapper gets worried and prepares to shoot Paul, and a gunshot is heard. The next day, Gail and Chase receive a call from the local police requesting them to come over and identify her son's dead body because they have found him. Gail looks at the body and notices that it is not Paul. Gail informs Chase that the body is that of an older guy, who was eventually identified as the kidnapper who revealed his face to Paul. He got killed because of his mistake, and the police discovered the dead kidnapper had priors. They find the names of Cinquanta and other members of his known circle of friends. The local police follow the kidnappers to where they had been holding Paul. The group stormed the house and shot 3 kidnappers. After looking throughout the place, they find out that Paul has been moved. One of the kidnappers is still alive and reveals that Cinquanta has sold Paul to a local crime family. Cinquanta brought Paul to the crime boss, Mammoliti, who hired Cinquanta to take care of Paul. Chase meets Getty Sr. to inform him that Paul's kidnap isn't a hoax and tries convincing him to pay the ransom, but he refuses. Somewhere else, Paul is being served food by Cinquanta. After he has left the room, Paul tries to create a fire by tossing a small lit piece of paper out the window of the room he's being held in. The kidnappers are dancing and celebrating in the compound, so as the fire burns, Paul uses an old piano to break through the door in the back of his room. Paul escapes as the kidnappers are distracted. Cinquanta sees Paul as escaping but chooses not to tell the others since he's come to care for Paul. Paul makes it to the road and stops a car. The driver is a police officer who takes Paul to his home, where Paul uses the phone to call his mother. Gail was elated to hear Paul, but before he could reveal his whereabouts, Mammoliti shows up and cuts the call. Paul was brought back to the place from which he escaped. Mammoliti is angry as Paul's family isn't paying the ransom, and in addition to that, the fire that Paul created drew a lot of attention, and now he has to pay bribes to the inspectors. Now he has run out of patience and decides to do something worse to Paul. Meanwhile, Gail sees a program on artifacts on television, and suddenly something strikes her. She rushes to her wardrobe and finds the artifact that Getty Sr. gave to Paul. She heads to a museum to sell it, thinking she could get $1 million from it, but she is shocked to learn it is a trinket usually sold to tourists. She visits another place and finds similar artifacts, and they are selling them for $15. Gail is devastated by the deception of Getty Sr. Meanwhile, the kidnappers arrive in Paul's room in an attempt to cut off his ear. Paul fights back but is subdued, and then they cut off his ear. They mail it to the newspaper. They immediately called the police, and Gail arrived with them. However, she is happy that Paul is alive. The newspaper offers Gail $50,000 to publish it on their newspaper, but she refuses the money and requests 1,000 copies, and sends them to Getty Sr., which actually works, as Gail gets a call from Getty Sr.'s attorney Oswald Hinge, who says that Getty Sr. is willing to pay the ransom. When she meets him, he offers to give her money if she gives up custody of all her children to her ex-husband. Gail sees no way out, so she signs over the documents. However, Gail and Chase learn that Getty Sr. will only give them $1 million since that's the most he can give and have it tax deductible. Chase goes to see Getty, where he angrily tells Getty that all of the security that Getty has is because of him and that nothing can stop Chase from harming Getty. Chase says that, despite Getty having all the money in the world, he's still just a man. After this exchange, Getty has a change of heart and wires Gail the full amount, which has been negotiated to $4 million. He also gave up the contract with Gail, leaving the kids with her. Gail and Chase carry out the money drop as directed by the kidnappers. They travel along an empty road until a stone shatters the windshield of their car, signaling that they should pull over. They exit the vehicle and place the money-containing bags on the side of the road. Then they are told to keep driving until they get to a gas station, at which they have to wait at the pay phone for more directions. After Gail and Chase depart, some men emerge to collect the money. Gail picked up the call at the gas station and was told that Paul was waiting for them 3 kilometers down the road. Cinquanta drops him down at the location, but Paul runs away. Gail and Chase arrive at the location, and Chase concludes he ran away to the town. At the kidnappers' hideout, they count the money. As Mammoliti is about to leave with the money, he spots a helicopter. He deduces that Chase has betrayed him and orders his men to find Paul and kill him. Paul goes through the empty and closed town. He tries to get some help, but since it's night, all the shops are closed, and people refuse to help Paul when he pleads to them for help. Gail and Chase arrive at the town and begin looking for Paul. Soon after them, the kidnappers, along with Cinquanta, arrive at the town. Chase spots Paul, but Paul runs away. Paul runs into one of the kidnappers, but Cinquanta knocks the man out and allows Paul to go. Gail and Chase get Paul out of the town and head back. As this happens, Getty Sr. wakes up from sleep, sweating and rambling. He couldn't find anyone in the house. He then stares at a painting he recently bought for $1.5 million. He holds that painting and admires it before he takes his last breath. A few days later, Gail was called by Getty Sr.'s attorney Oswald. He informs Gail that Getty Sr. has left his entire fortune to his grandchildren, which leaves Gail as the estate executor. She proceeds to shift all pieces of art that Getty had collected to his mansion in Los Angeles, which was later converted into a Getty museum. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this.